Alrighty, Corey, we have another viewer question from Klaus is a mouse. Yeah,
Klaus is a mouse.
Klaus is a mouse. He asked, do you think there's a way to stop the WEF Great Reset agenda?
Well, as is on the back of every single one of my books, a quote by Thomas Jefferson, which is my purpose and why I do what I do. And he said, enlighten the people generally, and tyranny and oppressions of body and mind will vanish like evil spirits at the dawn of day. So if more people and more people are becoming aware of these guys, because in the past, 10, 15 years ago, you would hear people, conspiracy theorists, you'd hear people like Alex Jones
Yeah.
talking about this stuff, and you'd be going, well, okay, some of that I can see, but other things this guy's saying is like, man, that seems so far out there. And then nowadays, with the beauty of the internet and YouTube and all these different video platforms, these guys all record themselves at their events, the World Economic Forum events. They record themselves, and you can see them talking openly about their plans for society and what they want to do. Just like David Rockefeller, they called it the New World Order, one world, if you will, which is basically a fascist government. And as Mussolini said, fascism is a perfect merger of state and corporate interests. And if you look at these people, it's a bunch of corporations and a bunch of politicians. Klaus Schwab likes to brag how Justin Trudeau and what's her name, Christina Newland or whatever the hell her name is, and half of Trudeau's cabinet are all World Economic Forum global leaders. So you can look at this group of elite has basically, in essence, you could make the argument that they and the people that they help get elected they're basically the ones running Canada, if you will. They're the ones that are deciding the policy. And there was a recent meeting that they just had at Davos. He says, we set the agenda. I mean, they really believe they're kind of running and ruling the world. And when you look at the things that they want to do, their stated goals, and then you look at what the governments in the West, like what the Biden administration is doing, what Trudeau's administration is doing, what the European Union is doing, what the UK is doing, pretty much all the governments of the world are in lockstep with what these global elite. They even refer to themselves as we're the elite. They literally talk this way. You can see it all on video. And so it reminds me of like those old, the Bond villain movies where James Bond is all tied up and he's about to be zapped with a laser beam or, die some horrible death. And of course, the main bad guy goes, well, I defeated you, James Bond, so I might as well tell you all my plans. And then, of course, the bad guy tells James Bond his plans, and then somehow James Bond escapes. And since he knows what their plans are, he's able to foil them and take out the bad guy. And that's pretty much what we see going on. And my hope is that we have enough people, good, honorable men and women in the FBI, the CIA, the DIA, people in the Justice Department, people in the court system, judges, people that work in law enforcement can see this and are actually doing something about it. Because to me, and some of the people that I converse with, it's like, how are they not guilty of RICO violations? The Racketeering Act, which is how the FBI was able to break up the mob. I mean, these guys are all colluding together and they talk openly about what they're doing and that they don't respect the sovereignty of the individual nation states. So they're literally working against the nation state and trying to get, as they refer to it, as a global authority and basically run by them. They want to run and regulate every aspect of our lives. And the more people know what they're doing and understand it and see their ideas failing, then because again, if you don't know what's real, then you don't know what to resist. You can't resist. You don't even know what's being done to you. And humanity as a whole, you have people like Richard Brand who talks a lot about the World Economic Forum, the global elites, the Bilderberg type of people. These are the ones that are the billionaires. These are the ones that are getting their politicians elected. And then when the politicians get elected, they put all of their friends and some family members in these different government agencies that they run. And it's like they have their own agenda. And what people are starting to see is that the politicians promise one thing, and then when they get in, what they actually do oftentimes is the opposite of what they said. So they say what they need to say in order to get elected because the electorate was like, well, that sounds good. That's what I want done. And then when you look what they actually do when they get into office, their goals always line up with what the World Economic Forum wants. So people see that enough, especially now. You got inflation going through the roof, you got the price of oil and gas going through the roof, and that's pissing a lot of people off. Joe Biden is the most unpopular president in history at this point. And there was a new poll that just came out that showed if the election was held today, that Donald Trump has a higher approval rating than Joe Biden does right now. And so that just shows you how, when people are suffering financially and they're like, well, I was actually making more money when Trump was president. Gas was a lot cheaper when he was president. My food was a lot cheaper when he was president. And, all that Putin price hike and all those other things that he tries to blame it on Putin. It's like people aren't buying it. I think only like 10 or 11% of the people actually believe the Putin price hike nonsense. But that's typically what the politicians do. I read a speech just recently from Vladimir Putin. It was really long, but it was I think he gave it in Kazakhstan. It was, Russian Economic Forum or something like that is what it was called. And I was just reading the speech and I'm like, there was a lot of truth in it. And he was calling out the governments in the West, namely, especially the Biden administration. And I look at how, Biden lies about, the Putin price hike and, it's always somebody else's fault. Never his fault. Nothing he did. It's always somebody else's. And so you could see that our own president and his press secretaries are just fucking lying their asses off about everything and spinning things and trying to get the public to perceive things a certain way. But when you look at the numbers, what the public, the general public at large believes, it's like they're not buying the bullshit that he's selling, because I mean it's killing them at the pump, and when they go to buy food, I mean the cost of things have just dramatically skyrocketed in the last year.